Good evening and welcome to the Daily Report. It is the 10th day of January. Thank you so much for joining us. We will be talking on the marketplace about how you can be saving some coins this in January. But before that, let's take a look at the highlights. Tonight.
3 things: incompetent leadership, vested interest, and corruption. And we must deal decisively with all of them.
President William Ruto declares war against graft, emphasizing his commitment to rooting out corruption within government institutions. Also tonight, controversy surrounds the 2023 KCSE results as students from Oruba Boys in Migori County dispute the authenticity, terming it as ingenuine.
We sat for the exam, 75 candidates, but what we have seen is unexpected. It's full of irony. We haven't seen this thing for sure.
This after almost all students scored grade D.
Rahisi kabisa. Unaona sasa ile mudhoko kwa kilo 15 unatumia dakika 5.
And we shall tell you about the remarkable transformation of Katoloni village in Makueni, where civilization took a significant leap in 2012. Thank you so much for joining us once again. Our sign language interpreter for the night is Rhoda Nyamai, and my name is Hibak Said. Tonight, President William Ruto has said no arm of the government will be spared in the war on corruption, citing vested interests and incompetent leadership as a major stumbling block to his development agenda. The president, who spoke in Laikipia County, where he unveiled key projects, among them the affordable housing project, said he will not allow individuals to frustrate his projects at the expense of ordinary Kenyans. And as Apollo Kamau reports, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has told off Ruto critics from the Mount Kenya region.
President William Ruto raised the stakes in his war against corruption, this time casting the net wide in his administration, saying that no one will be spared in all 3 arms of the government, sabotaging his development agenda. The president, who commissioned several development projects in Laikipia County, said he will not allow vested interest by a few individuals frustrate his development agenda to deliver universal health care, jobs, and affordable housing to Kenyans.
We are going to deal with vested interest that is sabotaging our progress, and we are going to eliminate corruption, whether it is in the judiciary, whether it is in the executive, or in the legislature, so that we can get our country moving and our transformation underway. Hiyo ni kazi lazima tufanye.
The projects, among them a 200-unit affordable housing project in Nanyuki, the tamaking of the Lamuria, Solio and Kihara Primary School roads, and the new KCC modernized factory in Nyahururu are in the Mount Kenya region, where former President Uhuru Kenyatta's allies have accused Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua of neglected development projects.
Na sisi tunataka kusema rais wetu tukiwa area hii ya Mlima Kenya. We made a conscious decision to support your bid for the presidency. Na sio ati kwa sababu tulikuwa tunabahatisha. We had many choices, lakini sisi tuliangalia kiongozi ambaye ako na maono na ako na mpango.
Sisi tunaangalia uongozi wa rais. Pengine utakuwa na shida mahali ingine. Lakini hapa kwetu Laikipia East, niseme ya Laikipia East. Na mimi naelewa siasa ya huko West kidogo wa shida atasema na kwingine. Lakini sisi maneno ya serikali ahadi imeweka.
Ati wewe usipate ajira hapa. Na mwenye anasema usipate ajira ni mbunge amechaguliwa, analipwa na pesa zenye wewe unalipa kodi. Amepewa mortgage ya 1 sijui kwenda 3%. Between 1 and 3%.
During the development tour, the president also called out Azimio leader Raila Odinga for criticizing his efforts to look for jobs abroad instead of creating opportunities at home.
Alafu nilisikia ule mtu ya opposition ya kitendawili anasema ati huyu mtu anasema Wakenya waende wafanye kazi nje, wangefanya kazi hapa. Yeye kichwa yake ni mzuri kweli? Kazi mahali tulisema kazi, si tulisema kazi ni kazi.
Among those flanking the president during the tour was Kajiado Central MP Elijah Memusi of ODM, who expressed his support for the president, saying Kenya is in good hands.
Nimewaambia nilichaguliwa na ODM, lakini nimeangalia, nikajiita kwa mkutano, nikaona mahali nchi inaenda ni Dr. William Samoei Ruto ataanza tusaidia.
Apul Kamau, TV47.
Thank you, Apollo. Tonight, the 2023 KCSE candidates at Oruba Boys Secondary School in Migori County are a worried lot after a staggering 72 out of the 75 students who sat for the exams received a grade of D. In a display of discontent, the students brandished placards and rallied for a comprehensive review of their grades, expressing dissatisfaction with the overall examination outcomes. Meanwhile, in Siaya County, a girl faces the possibility of not joining secondary school as she has been placed in a boys' school, with attempts to have the ministry change her placement proving futile. Elizabeth Atieno with more.
This was the situation at Oruba Boys Secondary School in Migori County. Angry students flocked the school compound, protesting over the just released 2023 KCSE results, terming them ingenuine. According to the students, 72 of the 75 candidates recorded Ds, 2 scored C-, and 1 scored an E, results they have since refuted.
Almost 75 candidates scored a mean grade of D. D. And in each and every exam that we have sat for, including internals and external, we haven't seen such a result. We haven't seen. In each and every exam, we must have what we call a curve in an exam, whereby we must have the top rank and the lower rank. You can find those people who have got quality grade and the lesser grade. But in Oruba Boys, it is a shock. This is totally a shock.
Kila mtu amepata grade ya almost D. Only 2 people ndo manage kupata C-. The remaining D plain, D+, watu watatu, sijui watu wanne only.
Addressing the press, one of the students said they were shocked by their results and now want the government to intervene.
Mimi nilikuwa niko tu relax nikijua nitapita, but kwenye ilikuja a D-, napeleka wapi? Nitapata nayo kazi wapi? D-. Almost kila mtu watu wawili wamepata C. Hiyo si result yangu. Yenye hata wakiacha hivyo, hiyo si result yangu. Acha tu ni pretend niliacha shule sijafanya KCSE.
Elsewhere at Nyalgunga Trading Center in Siaya County, this family has been gripped by confusion after their 14-year-old daughter, who topped in last year's KCPE examination at Nyalgunga Primary School, was placed in a boys' school. The student, Gloria Adhiambo, who scored 389 marks, was placed at Lenana School, which is a boys' school. Gloria says efforts to obtain a correct placement letter have proven futile.
Alafu kwenda kudownload calling letter, ni ndio calling letter nilipata. Asiko najua ni shule ya boys. Juu hapo walikuwa wameandika Lenana School. Sasa kudownload, mwenye nilikuja kuangalia uniform, nikaona kama requirements ni za boys, walikuwa nataka trouser. Hivyo ndo sasa tulishindwa, sasa tuanzie wapi?
According to NEC, the affected candidates will know their fate on 20th of January 2024. Elizabeth Atieno, TV47.
Thank you, Elizabeth. From Siaya County to the capital, where the Council of Governors have strongly opposed recommendations by the Presidential Working Party on education reforms. In particular, the county bosses have opposed plans to transfer the management of early childhood and development centers back to the national government. They argue that the transfer of ECDE functions from county governments to the national government is improper. Andrine Kilemi with more.
The education sector reforms have become a subject of heightened criticism as governors voice strong opposition to the proposed transfer of early childhood development ECD management from county governments to the national government.
The report should limit itself to what it was asked to do, but it should not attempt to rewrite the Constitution of Kenya.
In a briefing Wednesday, the Council of Governors Education Committee firmly objected the recommendations, particularly those related to pre-primary education. They argued that these proposals are unacceptable and undermine the progress achieved through devolution. Specifically, the governors objected to the idea of implementing a comprehensive school system where a single head of institution oversees all levels of learning.
We note that there is no accountability framework provided for the proposed head of institutions to the counties regarding the management of pre-primary school.
Additionally, the report proposes the development of an intergovernmental agreement for the recruitment and compensation of pre-primary teachers by the Ministry of Education, Teachers Service Commission, and the Council of Governors. Despite the proposal, COG insists that county governments will continue to manage ECDEs as constitutionally assigned to them. They argued that they have invested a lot of resources without any help from the national government and therefore reject all recommendations. Andrine Kilemi, TV47.
Thank you, Andrine. Now, with the proliferation of technology-driven cash transfers, landlords are increasingly vulnerable to unscrupulous tenants associated with fraudulent activities. A recent incident in Limuru, Kiambu County, highlights the severity of this issue, where a landlord is on the verge of losing more than 400,000 shillings. In a concerning trend, these cartel tenants have developed methods to manipulate remittance receipts sent to banks from M-Pesa. This deceptive practice puts landlords at risk of financial losses as the altered receipts are then forwarded to them. Our reporter Willie Dennis Njiru reports on the growing threat posed by tenant cartels exploiting digital channels for financial deceit.
A landlord in Limuru Town, Kiambu County, has found himself entangled in a complex dispute with a former tenant revolving around a staggering sum of 400,000 shillings.
Tunamdai rent ya miaka 4 na 10% ya defaulting, alafu kuongeza damages na kazi yenye tumekuwa tukifanya, tunamdai 400,000.
The row involves the evolving landscape of rent transactions, where traditionally cash payments have given way to technological transfers. This shift, though convenient, has brought about a myriad of challenges, particularly for landlords.
Osiri amekuwa akituma message, analipa kwa M-Pesa 700, alafu ana edit that message and the code didn't remain the same, lakini for the amount anaeka 7,000.
The tenant in question, formerly a caretaker of the property, supposedly stepped down from his role 4 years ago.
Ashaikuwa caretaker lakini aliacha kuwa caretaker mwaka wa 2019. Kwa hivyo nikihesabu kutoka sahi mpaka 2019, hiyo ndo maana namdai rent ya miaka 4. Sababu hiyo wakati yake ya kuwa caretaker iliisha na tukamjulisha na akajulishwa kutoka kuanzia hapo anafaa kuwa kilipa rent inavyofaa.
However, recent developments suggest that he manipulated digital records, specifically editing text within a bank statement. This revelation exposed a potential racket, creating an intricate web of ambiguity.
Amekuwa mkifanya hivyo since back then, na mimi nikakuja tu nikafuatia nikapata the same hiyo mtindo tu.
Adding to the complexity of the situation, the caretaker's wife claimed that there was a mutual agreement to waive rent payments. Yet, receipts obtained tell a different story, indicating a consistent history of rent payments by the tenant.
Waliagria asiwailipa rent. Nashangaa leo hii wanakuja kumwambia kwa nalipa rent.
As the legal battle unfolds in civil courts, a word of caution has been extended to both landlords and caretakers. The importance of safeguarding verifiable deposits, underscoring the need for diligence in navigating the evolving landscape of technology-driven financial transactions.
Wakuwe keen kwa tenant mostly wenye wanatumia M-Pesa kulipa through pay bill, wakuwa na follow up those messages because watu wana fake messages.
Reporting for TV47, I'm Willie Dennis Njiru.
Thank you, Willie Dennis. Now imagine this, paying more than 400 Kenyan shillings just to photocopy a document, such as an identification card. Seems outrageous, doesn't it? Well, that was the unfortunate reality for the people of Kitonyoni village in Makueni County. While it may seem like a trivial cost to some, accessibility proved to be a major challenge for the residents of Kitonyoni. However, everything changed in 2020. When electricity from the national grid finally reached the village. Our reporter, Moige William, toured Kitonyoni and witnessed the remarkable transformation that has taken place. Take a look.
Kitonyoni village, Makueni County, 30 kilometers away from the county's headquarters, Wote. This village, nestled in the heart of Makueni, has a lot of untold stories. Today, our focus is on its journey to civilization. To fully grasp the transformation, let's rewind to the year 2012, the year when the first electric bulb flickered to life in Kitonyoni, powered by solar energy. Remarkably, after 5 decades of independence, the people of Kitonyoni had never experienced electricity from any source.
Watu walikuwa wanatumia moto ya taa ya mafuta ya taa. Wakati ule moto kabla yaingia, tulikuwa tunakuja kwa kinyozi ile ya kutumia ile mashine ya mkono ndio unanyolewa. Lakini wakati moto hii ilipokuja, kunyolewa ni rahisi, unakuja unakaa kwa kinyozi unanyolewa bila shida.
Even more appalling, while the rest of the country reveled in the fruits of development, something as basic as a photocopy service was a luxury for Kitonyoni's residents. They had to part with over 400 Kenya shillings, with the bulk of it going towards transportation, as the nearest town providing such services was Makindu. Now, thanks to the electrification of the village, David Mosioki offers these services at the heart of Kitonyoni.
And something little like ID card. I used to see people traveling all the way to Kadhonzweni. By that time, going to Kadhonzweni was 200. Then you photocopy. But then you photocopy the ID with 10 shillings. Then you also pay back 200 more for you to get your photocopy.
In the year 2012, Kitonyoni village witnessed the introduction of its first power source, a solar energy plant worth 40 million Kenya shillings, funded by the University of Southampton. The plant supplies electricity to Kitonyoni shopping center and residents within a 600-meter radius. During national power blackouts, that is the tale of Oga for Kitonyoni residents.
Tulianza kuitumia 2012 September. Tukaitumia for 9 good years bila kupata stima. Na baada ya hivyo ndio tukaunganishwa na stima. Kwa huyo muda wote tumeitumia, hatujawahi kuwa na blackout.
For nearly a decade, this solar power plant illuminated Kitonyoni until 2020, when electricity from the national grid finally reached the area. It serves as a complement to the renewable energy harnessed from the sun, significantly reshaping the business landscape of the region.
Kazi ni rahisi sana. Rahisi kabisa. Unaona sasa ile mudhoko kwa kilo 15 unatumia dakika 5.
Lakini wakati hii ilikuja hapa tukafurahia sana. Tukaona hakika ni kama Mungu ametuona hii shida yetu.
Nilikuwa naona mgunia moja nalipa 400. Naenda huko Kadhonzweni. 400
gunia moja na pepa 400 unaenda unasaga muthokoi na hii unga. Unalipa 400 muthokoi, 400 unga, naweza kuwa 800 kwa transport. Inakuwa juu sana kwa sababu transport iko mingi, ndio unalipa pesa. Sasa ni rahisi sana, nimechukua tu na mgongo yangu. Kilo 45. Nikaleta hapa. Kilo 45 nikaweka kwa mgongo kutoka pale, unaona pale kwenye ile ndoo. Si nilibeba na mgongo nikaleta hapa 45. Sasa iko mthoko inapikiwa na ufundi. Iko mthoko hiyo kilo 45. Sasa hii ni 15. Iko kangunia hapa naweka tu. Hebu kwanza ilete.
Gen Z, ever heard of a hot comb? Picture a metal comb used to straighten hair heated by burning charcoal. This practice was still prevalent in Kitonyoni around 2011. However, times have changed. Now it's all about the blow dryer.
Hiyo hot comb ndio unaekelea hapo juu ya jiko, inakuwa moto. Kikuwa moto, sasa umeosha nywele. Kikuwa moto unatoa nywele kidogo kidogo tu kinyorosha. Lakini hiyo pia ilikuwa inaunguza, ukiweka moto mingi inaunguza nywele.
So it take how long
kutengeneza mtu mmoja? Ilikuwa karibu tuseme tu ikuwe laini kabisa nusu saa. Blow dry tu ni kuosha, kuja unakausha, unafanya blow dry 10 minutes imeisha.
For the more than 11 years since the setting up of this solar power plant, it has proven to be not only a gem for the people of Kitonyoni village, but also a game changer. Mwege William, TV47, Kitonyoni village in Makueni County.
Great story there by Mwege William. Thank you so much. Now, in the wake of a tragic incident that claimed the lives of 5 individuals in Chemoi and Kagir areas of Baringo North, 5 schools that had initially reopened for the new academic year have been closed indefinitely. Chemoi, Kagir, Yatia, Ngaratuko and Kosile primary schools have been shut down due to heightened security concerns among the locals in the area. Residents are now fleeing the area for fear of their lives, as Vera Alberta now reports.
In Baringo County, a desolate school building stands silent, devoid of students, even days after the commencement of the first term. This creepy emptiness follows a recent surge in banditry attacks in Chemoi and Kagir areas of Baringo North constituency. These attacks compelled pupils to flee, seeking refuge far away from schools that were forced to close due to insecurity.
Tutaendelea hivi mpaka lini? Leo mashule ilikuwa inafunguliwa. Sasa saa hii imefungwa. Shule ya Kakir, Yatta, Ngaratuko, Chemoi, closed.
The aftermath of the Tuesday attacks has left 5 people dead and several others nursing injuries.
Mimi nilikuwa napepa wawili, yeye mwingine anapepa wawili. Yule mwingine anapepa mama na watoto wake. Mimi nilikuwa napepa huyo mzee na kijana mwingine.
Armed bandits who struck Chemoi and Kagir not only robbed residents of their belongings, but also inflicted injuries before vanishing into the nearby forest.
Kuja kupora hao watu, wakanyang'anya pesa na bidhaa zingine za dhamana. Na baada ya hiyo, kulingana na ripoti ambayo tulipata, tulisikia kwamba hao walikuwa zaidi ya 10 na wote walikuwa na silaha. So baada ya tukio hilo, wao wakachukua hizo vitu yote wakaelekea msituni.
Baringo North Member of Parliament Joseph Makilap has expressed his concern during his visit to the hospital where the victims are receiving treatment, stating that the escalating banditry attacks have almost reached a point of genocide given the rising death toll.
Bandits wamewachana na kutafuta ng'ombe na mbuzi. Sasa wana target watu, wasenda, kanisa, natembea barabara, wasafiri na watu wetu kwa ujumla. So chenye tunaona ni genocide.
Residents have urged the national government to intervene and restore peace, especially as schools reopen for the first term. Vera Alberta, TV47.
Thank you, Vera Alberta. Now, bouncers accused of assaulting journalists and Nakada officers during a shisha raid at Kettle House Bar and Grill here in Nairobi are now facing charges of assault and illegal shisha sale. The 10 who appeared before Magistrate Gilbert Shikwe pleaded not guilty and were each granted a cash bail of 30,000 shillings. Zainab Mohammed with more.
Dennis Ngolo.
Appearing before Magistrate Gilbert Shikwe at the Milimani Law Courts, 10 among the 21 suspects who allegedly assaulted journalists and Nakada officers during a shisha raid at Kettle House Bar and Grill here in Nairobi were charged with assault and selling of shisha illegally and granted a 30,000 shillings cash bail each. The court has further issued a warrant of arrest against 10 other suspects who failed to appear in court for a plea hearing.
Jointly with others not before court, being security guards of Kettle House Bar and Grill, located along Mugagari Road within Nairobi County, you jointly assaulted one Boniface Bobita Elvis, a Nation Media Group journalist, who was among a team of Nakada enforcement, therefore occasioning him actual bodily harm.
So for the first to the 10th accused, they'll be released on a bond of 100,000 shillings, which surety similar amount, or an alternative of cash bail of 30,000 shillings each, with 2 contact persons each. For the 12th accused person, Sospita, is released on a cash bail of 10,000 shillings with 2 contact persons.
On January 5th, the bouncers allegedly assaulted journalists and Nakada officers who were on a mission to crack down the illegal sale of shisha at entertainment establishments. 21 suspects were arrested during the operation. The matter will be mentioned on January 24th, 2024.
Dennis Ngolo.
Meanwhile, as part of an initiative to enforce discipline within the private security sector, the government is currently undertaking an extensive security vetting and licensing procedure for all private security personnel, bouncers included. According to the Private Security Regulatory Authority CEO Fazul Mohammed, all private security guards must undergo security vetting, be registered and obtain a license before engaging in the provision of private security services. Zainab Mohammed, TV47.
Thank you, Zainab. Now, bouncers accused of assaulting journalists and Nakada officers, we've already gone through that story. The government has today acknowledged that Kenyans are going through tough economic times and struggling under the weight of the cost of living. Addressing the press in Nairobi, Public Service Cabinet Secretary Moses Kuria attributed this to global issues, including the inflation witnessed in the United States, as well as declining investment in agriculture over the 11 years. However, various ministries have cited growth in the economy, saying that the informal job sector has increased by 4%, jobs in the country increasing from 2.9 million to 3 million shillings.
For quite various other departments. But we are not hiding our head in the sand like the proverbial ostrich. We are admitting that things are tough, things are hard. We have diagnosed correctly what is the problem. Combination of both the international circumstances, the international issues, and also the historical underinvestment in key production areas that have happened in the past. That is my first message. My second message is that it will take time, and change and transformation is slow and painful. So we are asking Kenyans to bear with us as we go through this journey. The most important thing is that there is no option. There is no single route that is an easy route. There is no escape route to this. We have to do things, the painful things. We have to do things deliberately. And we have to do things realistically, not cosmetically, because we can have some results which are going to please people in the short term, but in the long term, we have paid for it. Historically, we've seen previous governments have gotten into that temptation of doing what is politically expedient and what is easy to do and taking the easier route. The William Ruto government recognizes and realizes that for us to have meaningful change in the medium term, we have to do the right things, lay the right policy foundation, and be very deliberate in matters of managing our economy and actually reviving our economy and putting the nation back on a path of growth and a path of transformation.
And within that very same topic, we will be talking about how you can personally alleviate the high cost of living within your home. Police in Machakos County have launched a probe into the murder of a Machakos University student who was allegedly murdered by her boyfriend. According to Machakos Sub-County Police Commander Emmanuel Okanda, Morake Muntu's lifeless body was discovered in her boyfriend's house with blood emanating from her mouth and nose. And as Chichi Josephine reports, police are holding their colleagues from the National Police Service in connection to the murder.
Katolini residents in Machakos County are still reeling in shock following the discovery of the lifeless body of a second-year university student in a rented room.
At Diaspora Rentals, a second-year university student who is undertaking Bachelor's of Education course was murdered, and she was lying on a mattress in the room where the incident is suspected to have happened.
Machakos Sub-County Police Commander Emmanuel Okanda has confirmed the incident, revealing that two of her colleagues are currently in police custody for questioning in connection with the murder.
So far, we have two male still students at the said university who are in custody, assisting the police with further investigations.
Okanda has urged Machakos University students to abstain from the use of drug substance, attributing a surge in cases of domestic violence in the area to drug and substance abuse.
As students continue with their studies, I would wish to advise them to reduce indulgence in substances that can make them violent or fail to take control of the subsequent actions that they undertake.
The deceased body has been moved to the Machakos Hospital mortuary, where it awaits autopsy pending further police investigations.
The body of the said student has been taken to Machakos Level 5 Hospital for preservation and post-mortem.
Chichi Josephine, TV47.
Right, and on that note, we go for a very short break. When we come back, we have sports news, and later on, we have the marketplace. Don't go too far, we'll be right back.
Wanasema wasemao kuwa elimu ni bahari haishi kwa kuchotwa. Wakati mwingi natangamana na wanafunzi madarasani, sio kama mwalimu bali kama nahodha kwenye kipindi cha tasnia ya elimu. Na iwapo utanikosa madarasani, basi utanipata nyanjani nikisaka habari zenye usawa, ufasaha na ukweli. Na iwapo utanikosa nyanjani, bila shaka utanipata studioni, hapa nikisoma habari na kuendesha mijadala mikomavu. Mimi ni Andrin Kilemi, mpenzi wa lugha ya Kiswahili na elimu kwa jumla.
They say money makes the world go round. So let's slow things down a bit. Put things in perspective. From the markets to the streets to the stocks, we make the complex comprehensible. Join me, Hibak Said, on TV47 Business News for market insights like never before.
What's making the headlines? What does it mean to you? How does it affect you? We answer all these questions every Sunday for half an hour on To The Point Show. Hey, I'm Grace Kuriakanja, and a lot has happened this week. Let's dive into it.
The news that matters the most is the one that hits close to home.
This is TV47 Sports News. Remember, you now have a chance to win amazing prizes like an all-expense-paid trip to Mombasa Beach Hotel, mbuzi, airtime, cooking oil, bus fare, and other prizes with Radio 47 and ClickBet. To participate, dial *448# on your phone and follow prompts. Now, let's get into sports. Greg Snow emerged as the champion of the third leg of the Safari Tour. The event unfolded from the 6th to the 10th of January 2024 at the Sigona Golf Club. Now, Greg's exceptional performance won him a title with an impressive 11 under par, accumulating a total score of 277, walking away with a total prize of 150,000 Kenyan shillings. Secured the second place after scoring 278 points, while Mohit Medirata of Sigona Golf Club claimed the third spot with a gross score of 281. The next event of the series is scheduled to take place at Limuru Golf Club from the 13th to the 17th of January 2024, and the top 8 players emerging from the series will earn the coveted opportunity to participate in the upcoming Magical Kenya Open.
Played all the holes pretty well this week. You got to make mistakes out there with the way the conditions are. But in general, I didn't make any doubles this week. Made plenty of birdies, a couple of eagles. But in terms of that, yeah, it's been tidy golf this week. And like I said, I'm looking forward to next week now.
Yeah, I played well. Can't complain. Just missed a few short putts. But all around, I had a good week. And yeah, the course was in great condition. And hope to have a good week next week.
All right, the Magical Kenya Ladies Open returns to the 18-hole Baobab course in Vipingo Ridge, Kilifi County from the 8th to 11th February 2024 for the 4th edition of the tournament. Now, the Magical Kenya Ladies Open is the only women's professional golf tournament in East Africa, will serve as the season opener for the 2024 Ladies European Tour calendar. Among the notable participants who have already signed up for the tournament are German Alexandra Forsterling, who won the 2023 VP Bank Swiss Ladies Open and the 2023 Mallorca Ladies Open. The 2023 Amundi German Masters champion Kristina Napolova from Czech Republic, 2023 MKLO runner-up Alice Hewson from England, and Kenya's top amateur golfer Naomi Wafula is expected to lead the Kenyan team. That's all we had for sports. Let's go to the marketplace. January, or January as many would refer to it, is a daunting month for many, considering the costs they incurred during the festivities. So what are some of the ways Kenyans can cut down on their budgets, especially on household costs? Well, you probably didn't know this, but you could probably cut down on 40% on your utility bills. That's your water and electricity bill, by simply adopting a smart meter to track your usage and cut down on wastage. Let's take a deep dive into this technology.
What better way to start the year than balancing budgets and assessing all available credit options? Right after abundant spending in December comes the penny pinching in January and the thorough assessment of your daily costs. So many Kenyans ask, how and where in my daily spending can I save?
Now, for your typical apartment, service ducts such as this contain wires and pipes that often go unnoticed, but with the right technology, you would be able to save on your utility bills and service charges by almost 40%, something that you could be ignoring.
House smart meters, which you can be able to get your consumption every single day. Every time that you use it, you can be able to control your consumption. We educate the end user, the tenant, of ways of conserving the power or water using the gadgets that we've given them, and that is a smart water and a smart power meters. You can be able to do that when you come and request for a mini statement. When we look, that is for power. For water, for example, when you look at this, you can be able to see this very nicely. I moved into this house in February. This is what I used in March, April, but pretty much it has been standard. I've not used anything above 7 units.
Odd how new technology can cut down on areas you thought were unadjustable, ensuring that even the monopoly power distributor can add a little back to your coin purse.
Sure, you get your power from a producer or rather from a distributor like Kenya. You can definitely tell with the consumption that there was someone.
Water is being used, electricity is being used
in that house.
You can manage it from wherever you are.
Yes.
Distance notwithstanding.
Distance notwithstanding. You can be able to know my house was occupied, this much water was used, this much electricity was used. If at all he disputes or your caretaker disputes, you can switch off the power and water. Trust me, someone will call you at the end of the day.
And as for the future of this technology,
we want to manufacture both power meters and water meters within the country and put in the functionality that is within our region.
With the grueling economic times, this could save you on costs, not only as an apartment owner, but even as a unit owner. Hibak Said for TV47. Right. Most of the time, your utilities, that's just a cost that you have to bear. You think the consequences usually is going to be borne at the end of the month when you get your salary. But of course, there's technology nowadays for everything. You can cut down even on your electricity and water. And of course, there are very many technologies that you can take up, especially when you want to cut down on those costs and put a few coins back into your purse. In studio, we already have engineer Elizabeth Nyambura, who is going to be telling us about another solution that you can take up, solar. Most of the people don't usually look at solar as something that you can be using when you're cutting on costs. Elizabeth is going to be cutting down on that for us. Elizabeth, welcome to TV47. And also we have Alfred Mathu. You're just going to give us, you're a financial analyst. You're going to give us a perspective on how we can budget. What are some of the things we can take up to cut our costs every single month? It's January. The mistakes have already been made in December. We already used up all the money that we had. We had a lot of sherehes, there were, you know, family gatherings, and then in January you have to buy school uniform for your children. What are some of the tips and tricks that you can take up? But before we delve into that, we have to look at some of the statistics in households. Of course, the typical Kenyan household, their spendings, a third of expenditure is usually used on food and non-alcoholic beverages. Now, a lot of people might not take this too seriously, but a third of your spending is about 33% of your total salary. You're using that on only food and non-alcoholic beverages, not even the ones for sherehe. Of course, 14.6%, around 15%, goes to electricity, water, housing, and gas, things that are very essential for living, and 10% goes to transport. Kenyans move around a lot. We go to work, we go to school, we go to do our businesses. 10% usually goes on transportation. This is just an average of the common household within, you know, Kenya. 8.1% goes to restaurants and accommodation when you're, you know, having maybe family gatherings or you're meeting up with your friends. 8.1% typically goes into that, and 7.7% goes on information and communication. That is your cellular device, when you're sending emails, on your internet, you're calling people. 7.7%. 3.74%, around 4%, goes on furnishings and household items. Those are usually, you know, your wall paintings, when you're maybe buying a new couch, when you have a new TV set. People are usually very excited about those things. Around 3.74% goes into that, and around 3% goes on clothing and footwear. Now, of course, I have to ask you, David, if you could just tell us, of these spendings, do you believe that Kenyans are making the correct decision?
Thank you very much to our listeners. Alfred Madhu is my name. I'm a financial advisor. I give people advice on all sorts of investments.
Right.
To help them make best decisions that will give them security for their future.
Right.
In terms of how Kenyans spend their money, we are majorly a spending community.
Right.
People are not looking at what would give them a bit of cushion in the bad times. We spend as though it's a competition.
Right.
We make money, and the better chunk of that money is actually going into lifestyle expenses.
Right.
For the first time, you meet some of these people and you talk to them about how about leaving some little money that will be able to form an emergency fund. That looks like a subject for the first time.
Right.
So what I'm trying to say here is that I think for me, there's a complete misunderstanding of how people should plan their budget.
Right.
You need to write a budget down. Look at what is my income. Is this the money that I make, or is this money that I'm borrowing?
Right.
You do not put yourself in a lifestyle that you cannot afford, because that is where most of the Kenyans are failing. You are forcing things to happen. That your current income can only sustain a particular lifestyle, but you choose to go beyond it.
Right.
So what happens now is that for you to be able to meet that gap, you start borrowing. You start digging a hole in your portfolio. And soon after, everything starts clubbering down. So I think for us, we just have to rewrite the narrative.
Right.
Look at what portion of my income will go into the recurrent expenses. The consumables, for example. Is it an essential expense? And then what portion of my money would go into the non-essential expenses? And what portion of my money do I want to put aside to build a buffer, the security, call it the emergency fund? And of course, don't forget that you got old age coming. You got other medium-term obligations, such as educating your children. Maybe you want to build a house one day. Maybe you want to buy an apartment one day. Maybe you want to do an country home one day. You start putting aside a fund that can help you achieve that agenda.
Right.
And of course, a portion will also go into long-term savings for retirement. Did you know that a lot of Kenyans are walking to retirement empty-handed?
Right.
We got crisis at old age. Bills cannot be paid.
Right.
Old people are relying on their children to pay some of these bills. And the big question is, what went wrong?
Right.
When you see people suffering at old age, it is not a one-day event. It's been a journey. You failed for many years ago, and you kept failing.
Right.
Now what you are seeing is the aftermath of the entire situation.
Right.
So I think for me, we just have to go back to the basics, understand, sit down and be guided on how do I do my budget, what do I need to take care of now, and build a certain level of security for your tomorrow.
Right. Yes. Alfred, you said Kenyans are spending like they're in competition, which, judging by the way we typically, divide our money within the month, that could be true. Engineer Elizabeth.
Yes.
14.6% going into electricity, water, housing, and gas. Electricity is very essential. We're in a new age. We just had a story of, one of the counties, that Makueni County, where people have not had electricity for a couple of years. A lot of the country now has electricity, 14.6%. What are some of the solutions we can take up to cut on this cost?
Thank you. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. So on cutting electricity is just doing small things. Number one, check the bulbs in your house. Are they all LED? And if they are LED, how many watts are they each? Do you know? For you?
I would assume, because most of the bulbs in my house are different, there are some rooms where I want, the yellow one, and then there's the really white one. No, I don't know.
That's the big problem, because you might find one of the yellow ones is 20 watts.
Right.
Yet one of the white ones is 5 watts.
Right.
Yet you can find yellow ones which are all 5 watts. So that is where it starts. You need to understand what is consuming the most electricity in your house. Another thing is how we operate the equipment we have in our house.
Right.
There are people who walk into the fridge in and out as if it's a security gate. You open, you close, you open, you close.
You're still making a decision of what you're about to eat.
But it's losing heat and you're using more electricity. So you need to already have made up your mind, because you already know what is in the fridge. It's not going to appear something new if it's not there. So those are the small things. The other thing is, not many people take advantage of natural lighting. Your lights are always on. Switch them off if you don't need. Unplug electronics that are not there. And then when you're going to buy electronics, look at the consumption of the electronics. You do not need a TV that consumes 150 watts, yet you can get the same size that consume 90 watts. So it's about being smart in choosing appliances that are not consuming so much electricity. Then the other option, which is my area of expertise, is solar. We should all go solar. If there's someone in Makueni right now who's listening, solar is your option.
Right. And actually, the project was a solar project, so clearly that is a solution that a lot of people should be taking. And I have to come back to you, Alfred. There are costs which are luxuries, and there are costs that are essential. Kenyans typically use 8.1% on restaurants and accommodation. What's your thoughts on this?
I think the first thing that, especially at such a time when the year is still very, very new, it's good for Kenyans to realize that the holiday is over.
Right.
We now have to go back to work and start building the nation, make money and save as much as we can. Very, very important to take that aspect of planning very, very carefully.
Right.
Your next Christmas is coming about 11 and a half months from now. Can you start putting money aside for it? We don't need to see people getting severely disrupted just a month to the holiday month. You should have prepared early enough and started putting funds aside early enough so that at the time you get to that finish line or the holiday season, you're actually not going out of your way to look for funds that were never planned for. A lot of people go to shydocks, some go to circles, others go to banks, others resort to borrowing from friends and relatives at that holiday month. Why can't you start that journey early? Start putting money aside. So by the time you get into December, you already have enough based, of course, on the budget. And don't go to places which you didn't plan for. If, for example, you have plans to take your family to Mombasa, come up with a budget. How much will it take me? What kind of hotel do I need to go? How much will it cost me? Start paying for that early. Because, of course, for some of the hotels, if you pay in advance, you get discounts.
Right.
If right now you're booking for your next hotel accommodation for the next season, chances are high that you'll be paying at half the rate.
Right.
Why pay the 9th hour? Because Kenyans are people of 9th hour.
Right.
We do everything 9th hour.
Yes.
Pay for taxes,
Last minute.
9th hour. Paying for bills, 9th hour. People pay for their rent, 9th hour. Let's change that narrative. That if you're planning to take your family to Mombasa in December,
right,
identify the hotel, let them tell you how much it's going to cost you that time, start paying for it. And of course, right now, you can be able to negotiate your terms, you can be able to get discounts, so that you don't suffer as much as ordinary people suffer that 9th hour.
Right.
Yes.
Alfred, you're typically saying, do not be a last-minute person. Yes. Prior planning is very, very important. A lot of Kenyans don't take this very seriously, but we're always, when's the deadline? I'll go a day before or on the day itself. And speaking of prior planning, of course, there are discounts sometimes. There are seasons when you can buy a couple of things. We know there's, Black November. That's when a lot of people buy things. Engineer Nyambura, I'm coming to you as a woman right now. And not typically how we say it on social media, but I'm coming to you as a woman right now. When it comes to furnishings and household items, what maybe are some of the months that people should be taking advantage of when they're going to buy those things?
So for furnishing and households, I believe, as you've mentioned, Black Friday is a good month. However, for me personally, what I do is, if, for example, I've identified a piece of furniture in a certain shop, I always go back to their online and check which months do they offer these sales, because it's always 30% off, 20% off. And then I start planning towards that instead of buying now under pressure. And then also, in terms of furnishing and household items, what are we doing with the old items that we need to keep replacing them so often?
Right.
Yeah. So,
because a dedicated almost 4%.
Yeah, because you can't be changing paintings every other day.
Right.
Unless there's a problem.
Right.
You can't be changing your table every 6 months. So it's also maybe some time to just sit and reflect and think about maybe hiring professions to help you with your interior decor, to save you on the money that you'll spend.
Right.
Keep redoing things over and over again. Yeah.
And now that you've mentioned having an interior decorator, a lot of Kenyans don't take advantage of professionals in different fields because they say, that's an added cost, I'll go and buy it myself. And then you find that you don't know where the discounts are. You don't know where to get dupes of whatever you need to be getting. Maybe if you could give advice to Kenyans, what are some of the things or what are some of the steps they should take before they do a purchase or they make a purchase?
Due diligence, number one. You need to understand where your product is coming from. For example, in my industry, if it's solar, you need to understand what kind of warranty does this product come with, how many years, and what exactly does that warranty mean, because warranty could mean a lot of things to different companies. Number two, you also need to see practically where these examples of these products are working, because sometimes if you go, if you walk to River Road right now, you'll buy a version of the same thing in 5 different versions, which ideally they should work, but the difference in how they've been constructed is what differentiates them. So one product is 5,000 bob cheaper and you go for it, but you replace it after 6 months. So you bought it at 5,000 bob cheaper, but in a period of 1.5 years, you've already bought it 5 times. So did you really save on costs? So due diligence is very key. Next, ask the experts. If you're not a carpenter, you're not a carpenter. So,
period.
Yes. Yeah. If you're not a solar expert, you're not. If you're not a financial expert, you're not. There's a lot of information even online if you cannot afford it. So we are talking about cutting costs. There's a lot of information that I'm sure even Alfred here has put out, just to educate people on how to be diligent with your money. So why aren't we using these resources that are already there, that are free?
It doesn't make any sense.
Yes.
We could just go on the internet. Google nowadays is close to free because there's a lot of Wi-Fi. And when we come back, we tell you of the budgeting process. What are some of the things that you should be prioritizing? We make use of our financial analyst who's already in the studio. We go for a very short break. We'll be right back.
Wanasema wasemao kuwa elimu ni bahari haishi kwa kuchotwa. Wakati mwingi natangamana na wanafunzi madarasani, sio kama mwalimu bali kama nahodha kwenye kipindi cha tasnia ya elimu. Na iwapo utanikosa madarasani, basi utanipata nyanjani nikisaka habari zenye usawa, ufasaha na ukweli. Na iwapo utanikosa nyanjani, bila shaka utanipata studioni, hapa nikisoma habari na kuendesha mijadala mikomavu. Mimi ni Andrin Kilemi, mpenzi wa lugha ya Kiswahili na elimu kwa jumla.
They say money makes the world go round. So let's slow things down a bit. Put things in perspective. From the markets to the streets to the stocks, we make the complex comprehensible. Join me, Hibak Said, on TV47 Business News for market insights like never before.
What's making the headlines? What does it mean to you? How does it affect you? We answer all these questions every Sunday for half an hour on To The Point Show. Hey, I'm Grace Kuriakanja, and a lot has happened this week. Let's dive into it.
The news that matters the most is the one that hits close to home. When disasters strike, we are there to inform you. When the bullets are flying, we tell you who's shooting and why. Reporting on your victories, your health, your money, your security, your past, present, and future. We are interested in telling the stories of creativity, hard work, and resilience that you are known for.
That is our job. This is my job. My name is Victor Muyakane, and it's my honor to bring you this news this way every Thursday night on the home of Untold Stories.
Right, welcome back to the marketplace. As a consumer or as a Kenyan, do you know your spending habits? Do you know how much you usually spend in a month? Do you budget for it? Do you stick to your budget? And how much do you usually keep for savings? Of course, it's always good to have a bit of statistics to have perspective, to know exactly what it is that we use, how we use it, what as a country are we doing about it. Now, household final consumption expenditure, which is, formerly known as the private consumption, is the market value of all goods and services, including durable products, which are electronics and gadgets and machines, and which excludes purchases of dwellings, which is rent, right? Now, this stood at 76.38% of the gross domestic product. What that essentially means is that usually the household final consumption for all of us Kenyans was about 80% of what we're worth as a country. We are major spenders. Now, I have to come to you, Alfred. What do you think is maybe one of the things that is pushing Kenyans to be such, huge spenders? What is it in our culture that forces us to spend so much?
Thank you very much. I think I start off by telling you that there are 4 money personalities.
Right.
Top is the spender. Mm-hmm. Second is the saver. Mm-hmm. The other one is the dreamer. Mm-hmm. And the final one is the investor. Let me give just a brief description of who each of these categories is.
Right.
The spender is this type of a person that majorly spends on lifestyle. Mm-hmm. He or she is literally on every credit card. Mm-hmm. Borrowing from every corner of this world, borrowing from friends, borrowing from circles where they belong, borrowing from the bank, borrowing from Shylock, they are all over. And when you look at why they are borrowing this money, it's not to be able to meet the essential obligations. It is for lifestyle. These are people who keep changing their mobile numbers, for example, in Kenya. Right. Because they know that those that they owe are running after them. And they keep moving from one place where they live to another. Today they're in Umoja, tomorrow they're in Donholm, the other time they are in Mrongo, they are all over the place. Right. They're running away from some people. Let me go to the next category of people. These are the people that call the dreamers.
Right.
Dreamers will always talk about the big things they want to achieve in life. The only misalignment is on investing.
Right.
That yes, you talk about wanting to take your children to this type of schools. You want to have this kind of a retirement home. You want to be driving this sort of a car. But what are you doing with your money today? Are you putting sufficient amounts aside to be able to build into achieving those goals? These are the dreamers. I want to take my children to St. Andrews truly. I'll be living in Karen, 5-bedroom house. I'll have a swimming pool. I'll have all these things. But am I saving towards that? Now, the next category is of people that we call the savers. The savers know the need to put money aside. The only challenge with them is that you know you're earning 300,000 shillings, you spend 250, so there will always be a 50,000 shillings that will live in the bank account. After 1 year, the 50,000 shillings would have accumulated to say 600,000. So the only place that the savers fail is they are not very cognizant of the fact that money left in the bank account and savings account may not necessarily be giving you any value, for their money against inflation. So we need such people to be sensitized on better avenues through which they can invest and get better values and better returns on their money. The final person is the investor. We only have 2% of genuine investors in Kenya. 2%. The rest are fake investors. The people who understand exactly what they need to do with their money now, take sufficient security on their assets, and be able to leave enough room for their emergency, be able to take care of the retirement, and above all, do a succession plan. These are only 2% of the people. These are guys that work with accountability partners. They understand their risk appetite. They'll not just go into any sort of investment. When they go into an investment, they have assessed. They have done their due diligence that the moment they go, for example, into infrastructure bonds, they know what they want to achieve in that space of time. Now coming to your question, as a country, I started by telling you that we are major spenders. We are consumers. And that is the reason why you can see on average, even at a national level, we are spending about 8% of what we make. Leaving no room for building cushion, leaving no room for investment. It's a gentleman called Warren Buffett, and who is among the richest in the world. According to Warren Buffett, he says that we should be spending the balance of investment. That when you make your money, your money hits the bank account. You should first of all invest and then spend on the balance. But what do you do ordinarily in Kenya? When we make our money, we spend first, and then if there will be anything left, which hardly is, we will invest. There are people who are at 60, there are people who are at 57, there are people who are at 65, and they have never put money aside. Everything they make, they consume. Everything they make, they consume. Shocks and surprises only come at the finish line. When your productivity has gone to nil, and you still have obligations to be met. For example, medical. People are depending on children, they are relying on relatives, they are depending on everyone to pay bills. We are a country of WhatsApp groups. Everyone wants to rely on somebody else to meet an obligation that ought to have been yours. So it's a narrative we have to work on, change. People coming to see financial advisors will help them to understand at this particular stage, what do I need to do with my money to be able to make the best use and ensure that I'm also leaving room for emergency, I'm leaving room to take care of my contractual medium-term goals, and also taking care of my old age in terms of retirement investment.
Alfred, I'm sure you've left a lot of Kenyans with a lot of things that they should be thinking about right now. What type of spender are you? Are you a consumer? Do you invest? Do you just spend without thinking? And now I have to throw it at you, Engineer Nyambura. What type of spender are you? And of course, tell us, if you are an investor, what are some of the ways in which you've invested?
All right. So I will say I am an investor, and I've started small. So I've set up my emergency funds, and I've set up for big expenditures. For example, skincare products.
It's an essential.
Yes.
It's an essential.
But it's also very expensive. And they always end on 15th of the month when you have no money.
And
for
all of them
at
the
once.
Same time.
And now you need some 10, 15,000 to go and buy all of them if you want to buy all of them at once. So it's unreasonable for you to go to Mshwari. So for me, I have saved that money enough to last me at least for the next 2 years in terms of those consumables which are one-offs, because you know every quarter you need to refill or every half year. So that's what I'm working with at the moment. At a household level, currently 30% of our electricity bill is slashed. We're using solar. So that does the lights and the sockets. So the only part we're using KPLC is for the kitchen and the showers. Because we're living in a rented apartment, so it's a bit tough to convince your landlord you want to install more things on his roof.
And it's essential that Kenyans know, just like Engineer Nyambura here, that it's not always your own house where you need to go and buy solar panels for. There are some ways that you can cut down on your electricity, the smart meter being one of them. And of course, you know, some of the things you use, your bulbs, some of the electric gadgets that you use, your machines, the washing machine, you know, within your house. Are you using things that are more cost effective? And some of the time, some of these electronics, the initial prices are a bit higher.
Yes.
What would you advise Kenyans who are looking to buy these, you know, better machines, but they don't necessarily want to part with more money?
For me, I'll say look at it long term. So if you buy an old washing machine, that is going to consume more electricity, it means over a period of 1 year you'll pay more bills. So if your bills will exceed by 10%, 20%, is it worth it? So, and again, capitalize on discounts. Some of these machines that we buy is not a matter of life and death. You can wait a bit longer to save for that more energy efficient appliance. Because it's not like you woke up one day and you didn't have clean clothes. You already have a system in place to ensure that you have clean clothes. A washing machine is coming in as an assistant in one way or another. So instead of rushing into buying this, save up. Slow but sure. Look at it long term. Because also getting rid of these energy consuming machines is also very expensive. Because like for me, I had one washing machine which consumes a lot of power, so I even disconnected it. But you can't sell it to anyone. Unless you sell it as scrap metal. So you don't also want to have such things in your house. You're just accumulating old machines that you can't use.
Now that you've started this new lifestyle in January 2024.
So it's one thing at a time. And then in terms of power consumption, there are also some things that are unnecessary. So you don't really need, for example, there are people who have 2 TVs in one room. Why?
The luxury of it all.
But you never use them. They are all showing the same thing at the same time. It doesn't make sense. So I think it's just looking at it at how much are you looking to save in a certain period of time. So if you're able to cut down your electricity bill by 30%, it means that 30% is money that you can set aside for one thing or another. For example, an emergency fund. That's like basic level. Bare minimum, what everyone should have.
And speaking of basic level, Alfred, the Kenyans who are watching this right now, of course, are wondering, now that I have all this information, I am now, you know, open to the idea of saving, buying more cost-effective, you know, machines, but I am thinking of how I will budget this money that I have. If you could just take us through, you know, a typical budget for a normal Kenyan. What are some of the things that I should prioritize when I'm drafting my budget for the month?
We've got a 50-30-20 rule. Where 50% is about what you're doing as a family, yourself, your essentials, your rent, your food, all those things. Maximum for all that. Should never go beyond 50%. You got an element 30% here. This 30% will take care of the emergency funds, to take care of their medium-term contractual obligations. You've got school fees to pay, for example. And a question came up the other day. What is the best time to pay school fees? A parent was asking me, and I told the best time to pay school fees is when you're going to pick your child from school. For holiday.
Before they leave even.
Like now, kids came home in November. When we're going to pick them in November, that would have been the best time to pay the school fees. Rather than wait until the 9th hour. You know, some of the schools, like for example, where my children are, if you prepay your school fees, you get a discount. So why don't you pay in advance? So this 30% is supposed to take care of the emergency and the contractual obligations, including the school fees. And you got this element of 20%. 20% should go into building your long-term security, retirement for that matter. You should be asking yourself today, for the years that you've been working, how much of your income have you pushed into long-term savings? And the saddest thing for all of Kenyans is that, yes, at times you're so determined to build your portfolio in such a manner, it's so organized, but hardly 2 years, you are liquidating your long-term investments to take care of an emergency. I don't know what happens with the discipline among we the Kenyans. You start so well, but along the way, me, I don't know what spirit comes in. that people immediately lose focus and they start doing things that they never planned, things that were scheduled for this year, they are not even going to be anywhere, in your diary anymore. You'll be revisiting this end of the year, and you have a whole list of things that you had planned to do but never did.
Right.
People have talked about their new year resolutions less than 3 weeks ago. Some of the people have already forgotten what they had intended to achieve this year. So when you have a goal that makes so much sense to you, your family, and the future that you want to have, write it down.
Right.
Work even with an accountability partner. Somebody who is on that path, maybe a few steps ahead of you, let them walk with you. Let them share with them what you want to achieve. So at any time you're about to drift, out of that path, by the way, Alfred, you said that you want to achieve this. How are you progressing on it? They'll always get you back on focus. But Kenyans want to work alone. You go buy plots alone. No one knows why you're buying those plots.
Right.
You die, everything is lost. All the money that was for investment is lost in that way. Even at family level, you doing investments which you can never disclose to your spouse.
Right.
That's a waste. That's wasted. So I think for me, the whole idea of writing our narrative will start with planning.
Right.
And what you plan to achieve, write it down. Share it to the people that matter to you, so that you can then walk that journey together.
Right.
But as long as you keeping things secret, you don't want to discuss money matters with your family, with your spouses, you'll never be able to achieve the agenda. There's a lot of hopelessness at old age. And especially we, the men, are severely affected.
Right.
Because most of the men don't want to listen to advice. So I continuously talk to the men and telling them, you know what? We have to do things differently.
Right.
Yes, our fathers never involved us in their financial conversations, but you can't do that at this particular stage of our life.
Right.
We want to be involving our spouses. We want to also be involving our children.
Right.
You start talking to your children about money matters so that that helps them to make a good foundation. As they start working, they'll be remembering the things that their mom and dad told them, that you start with an emergency fund. Once you build an emergency fund that can take care of 3 to 6 times of your monthly running expenses, then you will go to the next phase of your life, start building the contractual investments, start building investments that can take care of your contractual obligations. That should be the kind of engagement. Yes.
Right. And let's gain some perspective before we go to what do we do for the future? How do we plan for the future? Before we delve into that, let's just have some perspective with our very final slide as we look at, some of the things or some of the spending habits of a lot of Kenyans. Now, consumer spending stands at about 7.13 trillion as at last year. Consumer spendings, we've said, is the amount of money that Kenyans typically spend, which is almost our entire GDP. If we took the entire, country, Kenya, we took it, and sold it, you would find that almost 80% of it we've already spent. In comparison to around 6.9 trillion in the last year, so it's risen by almost, let's say, from 6.9 trillion to 7.13 trillion. To have this in perspective, from 1964, we had 48 million being consumer spending habits. The rates are rising really, really fast. Now, let's not put this, in perspective at the moment. Let's think about the future. Now, you're thinking of diversifying your portfolio. What exactly can I do to earn money? People usually say you can't be rich from your salary alone. Alfred, I'll throw this back to you once again. What are some of the ways that I could diversify my portfolio to ensure that I have money streaming in that's not just my salary?
Good question. Let me tell you something. When I started my career as a financial advisor way back in 1998, and I had this mentor of mine, and who was my boss, who encouraged me from the day one to start putting money aside for my long-term goals, and which I gladly took. Of course, it was a tough step because my income was not much. So dedicating 3,000 shillings out of a salary of 13,000 was not a very simple decision. And of course, in my very formative stages, because at that particular time, you don't even have enough clothes to go to work. You need to buy stuff for the house. You need, all that.
Right.
But I did it. I saved through the years, and enough times I was broke. Enough times I was broke that I kept telling myself I should redeem this investment at this stage. But something else kept telling me, no, keep going. Other people have done it before, and they've achieved. The interesting that I want to bring to you here is that I maintained that investment and kept reviewing the amount all the way until last year in May.
Right.
You can imagine maintaining an investment account from 1998 to to 2023. That was long term. But something has happened out of that, and which I also want the listeners to hear.
Right.
The money that I got, which I don't have to necessarily disclose, I kept reviewing that amount from 3,000 upwards to quite some substantial amount.
Can you just tell us maybe in figures generally? So that we can have, you know, we can see.
Some people wouldn't even understand how this happened.
Right.
But imagine moving from 3,000 shillings savings every month to a level of about 340,000 shillings saving every month.
Right.
The total savings
per month, that is.
The entire saving in the entire period was about 17 million.
Right.
Which gave me back 38 million. So this 38 million shillings now has formed for me a new stream of income. So quietly, I've pushed that money into infrastructure bonds. I got this bond that was released to the market in June,
right.
a 7-year, with a coupon of 15.83. So pushing that money there, what now that has done is that every 6 months you're getting some payout, that's a coupon. And that money now will actually be able to take care of a lot of my long-term and medium-term goals that were pending.
Right.
So I think every person can start where they are. The problem in Kenya is that they want to climb the tree from up, down. Let's start from a humble beginning.
Right.
But yes, my salary is 30,000. Out of this 30,000, Alfred Matthew has recommended that we maintain the standard of 22.5% savings.
Right.
Whatever amount you make, just put aside 22.5% into an investment program and let it land into the long term. What will happen is that, one, it will improve your discipline on spending. You not just spend your money anyhow, you'll be spending very, very carefully because already some of it has gone out into the investment. So you're left with less. You will not just be going into lifestyle expenses.
Right.
And then, of course, giving these investments a period of 5-10 years, it will come back to you as a lump sum. Now, the major life goals that you have, you wanted to build a house, you want to have a good money market fund account, you wanted to have a good pension account, this money can help you achieve that agenda. And what will happen now is that immediately becomes a passive income for you.
Right.
You know, there are people who've built their money market fund accounts today to levels of 10, 15, 20 million shillings. And now that is already giving them another 200,000-300,000 shillings every month quietly.
Right.
That for their bills, either for, even for the children. Call it school fees. That the 200,000 shillings that you're making from your money market is enough to cover that studying expense for the children. Why should you wait until the 9th hour, spend all the money, and then start regretting that I wish I had done that, I wish I had done. A lot of the people that I meet, they have only one thing that they tell me: I wish I did this early.
Right.
I wish I had met you early. Now, the young people who ought to be taking this gospel and execute the portion that they need to, are not doing it. What will happen is that 10, 15 years later, that's when they start looking back. Hey, if only I had done that,
right,
I would have achieved this.
Right.
So I think for me, it's about planning. Let them engage us. Let them engage the financial advisors. And we are many. It's not just Alfred Matthew. We are enough people in this industry, from all the companies, who will be able to help you understand how to go about your financial planning, be able to prioritize a certain percentage to take care of the emergencies, be able to prioritize a certain amount to go into construction investments, and also help you to build a retirement fund. Yes. So I think for me, we are always available to be able to help people to achieve this thing.
Right.
Yes.
And Alfred, you've brought up a very interesting aspect. A lot of the youth usually say, live fast. We're living in the moment. Right now we're having fun, we're going out, but then in the future, a lot of the people don't have a retirement plan. Engineer Nyambura, you are part of the youth, right? Do you have a retirement plan, A and B? What are some of the things that you usually do every single month to ensure that whatever money is streaming in continues streaming in? And what are the backup plans that you have?
So yes, I do have a retirement plan. What I've done is automate.
Right.
I've automated my debits to the retirement fund. So as long as the money has hit the accounts, it goes directly out to for pension, for emergency fund, etc. Once you automate that, there's no way, unless you go and intentionally cancel it, and you'll have to do it, and you'll feel guilty for doing it. So just automate it and let it run.
Right.
Then for me, what I will say as my advice to anyone, if you don't want to do a budget, track your expenses for 3 months. Everything you do, just track for 3 months, write it down. There are apps where you can do that. Then after 3 months, you will want to do a budget.
Right.
Because you'll realize maybe you took too many Ubers, which were not necessary. you'll realize maybe you ate out too many times, yet at the same month you had done shopping for the household, which expired. So you wasted money on both ends. Yeah.
And
so start with just do your expenses for 3 months and look at it. And don't just anything you spend, even if it's 5 shillings. Say today I bought a sweet for 5 shillings. Then you'll see how many sweets you've eaten in 3 months. And then you'll find that your transactions on sending money, you've spent 3,000 shillings, which could have been put aside.
Right.
Yeah.
And usually people, you know, we usually dismiss such small sums. We say, you know, that's not much. It's just 3,000 in a month. You know, you only
but in a year is 36,000.
Right.
In 10 years is 360,000. If you had put that 3,000 in money markets, it will have gained a good amount of interest in those 5 years, which is money that you don't have now because you've already spent. As you've said, we are a spending nation.
We are a spending nation. Now, as we were giving all of these sentiments, unfortunately, time was running, and now we need to start wrapping it up. Alfred, as you talk to Kenyans right now, what final advice would you give the common mwananchi who is a typical spender?
You know what? As she was talking, I remembered something. There are people that have drank their retirement homes.
Right.
That every day you just consuming 2 beers. Every day 2 beers. Every day 2 beers.
One for the road.
You've been drinking the last 30 years. If you look at the sum total of the money that has gone into drinking, that actually took away the big dream of a retirement home. So start small, but start now. In fact, it's a success formula that they say you have to think big. Think of that big goal that you want to achieve. You have to start small. Why? Because we got limited resources. But then you have to start now. Think big, start small, but start now. Starting now is killing procrastination because a lot of Kenyans have been killed or they have lost their dreams because of procrastinating. That everything you're saying, I can do this next week. I can do this next month. I'm only 25. I am only 28. See, I'll do these things when I get married. I'll do these things when I get my first child. I'll do these things when I get my second child. Procrastinating has killed a lot of potential dreams. That aside, let me say what. There's only one thing that I would like to tell our listeners today. No one plans to fail. People only fail to plan.
Right.
So the whole conversation that we have had this evening takes us back to one subject, financial planning.
Right.
If you really want to plan and achieve your long-term, short-term, and medium-term goals, you need a financial advisor to work with you. An expert who understands the journey. Don't go for a bright person because they will not help you. Go for experts like myself. I'll be able to help you demystify the whole understanding of financial planning and I'll help you take the right steps at this particular point.
Right.
Whatever you're doing with your money now would actually tell us if you did the right things 10 years later. We might not. It's like cancer. I was telling her earlier. Financial mismanagement is like cancer. You will not know that you have cancer until it's stage 4, stage 3, stage 4.
It's too late.
Similarly, financial planning, we're not going to know that you're doing the wrong things with your money until you are on the finish line. When you start seeing you depending on others. When you start seeing you doing fundraisings. When you start seeing you retiring hopeless. So you got to do the right things. Insist on doing the right things when it comes to money matters. Because there's no correct way of doing the wrong things with the money.
Right.
Just go for the right understanding of every step so that you can execute at the right time.
Right.
Yes.
Right. And of course now, Engineer Nyambura, what are your final sentiments to Kenyans on cutting on costs, 1, and 2, planning for the future?
On cutting on costs, for me, I'll say let's go solar. You don't have an excuse. Solar is not for people who do not have KPLC. Solar is not for the rich. Solar is not for big factories. Solar is for everyone. And as I've given myself as an example, I have installed solar in my rented apartment. So anyone can do it and it will save you. You can reduce up to 50% or even more of your electricity bill. And that is money that you can save for a rainy day. We are living in very tough economic times. And it will only get tougher. So every small coin must count. We cannot live under the luxury that hopefully things will turn around. That is hopefully. It's not realistic.
Right.
So you have to start doing the difficult things. For me, my challenge to Kenyans will be to reduce expenses. It's the most difficult thing anyone can be asked to do. Because reducing expenses for one person can mean moving to a smaller house, changing the schools your kids go to. But it's something that we have to do if we are going to see tomorrow Yes, and as always, it's always a good time to go solar.
Right.
Yes.
Of course. You must make conscious decisions.
Yes.
When typically whatever you spend on, you must make the best decision when it comes to your electronics, when it comes to your machines, when it comes to the car you drive, the house you live in, the things that you spend your money on the most. And of course, you have to plan. You said failure to plan is planning to fail. I think that's probably the ending statement that a lot of Kenyans will be taking from this particular conversation. Thank you so much for being a part of the very first marketplace this year. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Of 2024. Thank you so much for being a part of this. I hope you've gotten a lot from this conversation as we continue to look into some of the ways that we can be cutting on costs as the year progresses. And of course, we analyze how the economy is doing. My name is Hibak Said. Have yourselves a wonderful night.